Very much. Tomorrow is, of course, the deadline for those automatic federal spending cuts, and Congress is already starting to leave for the weekend. There go some of the members fleeing the Capitol. So what's going on, and is there still time for a deal, or is a deal really what we need right now? Representative Kevin Brady is a Republican from Texas, and he is chairman of the Joint Economic Committee. Congressman Brady, welcome. Good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
I assume that you believe that there is no prospect of a deal to avert these government spending cuts that will kick in as of midnight tomorrow night. Is that necessarily a bad thing?
No, it really isn't. In fact, I think it's absolutely necessary. This was a bipartisan agreement, an idea proposed by the president, agreed to by Republicans more than a year ago. In fact, the president threatened to veto any change in these cuts last year. And so I think while these are relatively modest and they're a tiny part of our economy, I think it's finally time we get some real authentic spending restraint in this government.
They're a small part of the economy, I take your point, and they're even a relatively small part of the federal spending overall. But in terms of the spending that will be affected, because so much has been taken off the table with respect to these cuts, it is a more significant, and they're going to phase in over the next 7 months. It is a more significant cut. I'm curious about your district, not knowing exactly where it is. What will be affected in your district if these cuts go through and are sustained?
Well, it's hard to know yet. You know, a lot of this is conjecture. The president is threatening to close down a runway at Bush Intercontinental Airport, which doesn't make sense because, you know, the FAA spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year on consultants, $200 million a year on airports to nowhere. I don't know. I think you could pay a consultant $25 to tell you don't close down runways, and so it's hard to know, you know, sort of differentiate the fiction, the scare tactics, and truthfully, the modest savings that are going to take place.
I mean, I think we probably all could agree that a better way to achieve spending cuts would be to target them in the way that you seem to be proposing, not this across-the-board approach, even though there are people who think that, well, that's really the only way you can do it because nobody seems willing to have their ox gored here. But isn't it the nature of the across-the-board cuts that things like the shuttering of a runway at Bush Intercontinental would take place? It's the nature of the game, isn't it?
Well, what's frustrating is that, look, there's been plenty of time in the last year to provide more flexibility. The House has certainly proposed that. You know, I think the president would like it now. I don't know why he's waiting to meet with our leaders after the spending cuts take place. But, yeah, we're prepared to give the president, our military especially, but our agencies flexibility to set priorities. But right now, it's really a scare game. My point is the way our global competitors have cut spending and got their economy going is different than this, but it's still a start.
You know, the stock market, Congressman Brady, I don't know how closely you watch it, but you must watch it a little bit, seems rather nonplussed here. We're within 70 points of an all-time high. I wonder if you would fast forward for me 30 days to the end of March when that continuing resolution expires. Is that really where the rubber is going to meet the road?
You know, actually, I think no. The answer is no, and here's why. I think actually March is going to be spent accomplishing a couple things. One, you know, the House and I think the Senate and President will agree on some flexibility within the savings cut, the new lower budgets. And I think we'll agree fairly readily on how to fund the government for the rest of the year. I think that's going to be fairly simple. March, though, requires the House and Senate to lay out their budget, which really answers the question for the market, which is Washington serious about spending there or addressing the spending crisis, especially, you know, our long-term spending problems. I actually think the market's going to be looking at that over the next 30 days.
It's going to be a very interesting month, Congressman Brady. Thank you for being with us. March Madness isn't just a basketball tournament, is it, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Simon?
Ty, you saw in